doing this. Welcome everyone to the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc on Monday, March 17th, 2025 to our regular council session. We'll do the land acknowledgement. The municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful to the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. Roll call, all are present. Motion to approve the agenda as circulated. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Palkman. All in favor? Carried. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Yep. Councillor Pammer.
Yep, indirect pecuniary interest 4.1 and 9.1.2.
Yep. You said 4.1, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first 4.1 is a first public meeting. Motion that the public meeting to consider a rezoning application for the property at 450 Head Street North be hereby open. Someone to bring a motion. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. Mr. Williams, there you are.
Should wear a hat or something. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a application for rezoning at 450 Head Street, as you mentioned. This is at the intersection of Abigail and Head Street. This is a rezoning application where there's an existing home on the property zoned R1. It's a residential designation in the official plan as well. The surrounding area is predominantly residential and in the form of single detached dwellings. And while you can't see it on this location map, council may remember that at 430 Head Street there was a recent development that was approved for 21 single detached dwellings. So that is just off the screen, and I mentioned it just for context for those watching as well. So this is, we can move to the next slide just to detail the application. It is a proposal for 8 dwellings, 4 dwellings in each of the 2 buildings. The buildings are in a lighter color, and you can see a darker hatch, and that is where both the parking spaces and the driveway to reach those parking spaces is located. The number of parking spaces meets the standard for the zoning bylaw, so there is no request for variances or deviations from the zoning bylaw in terms of setbacks, heights, and parking. The only reason to go to the R2 zone category is to allow for some other dwelling type other than a single detached dwelling. And in the R2 zone category, a multi-use building, or sorry, multi-unit building, such as what is being proposed here, is permitted. What is also being asked for is 8 units rather than 6, which is the max permitted in the R2 zone category. As you'll see here, there's a single access from Abigail Street, but the property does have frontage on Head Street as well. Moving on, the next slide just shows this plan at a little bit greater scale, and so I've talked about it. It's in the planning report. I'm happy to speak to any of those parts moving forward, but just moving to the next slide in terms of consultation. So staff have reviewed the application, agencies have reviewed the application. There's comments on municipal addressing and comments on just requiring servicing details prior to a building permit and site alteration occurring. And then this evening is the statutory public meeting, and so we would receive comments from both the public and from council, and we would move forward from there. So moving to the next slide, this just speaks to the policy background. I mentioned the provincial It's actually the provincial planning statement now, my mistake. I just so used to writing policy, I guess I wrote policy statement on this one, apologies. The report speaks to this, the county OP, which has it in a settlement area, local OP has it in residential designation in the zoning. Currently, it's R1, and they're seeking the R2, as I mentioned. So, moving on, the next steps following tonight's meeting would be a planning evaluation report that would come to council probably in the springtime at some point, depending on the comments that are received and the time in which it takes for the applicant to address any of those comments that may come tonight. And then a decision would be made at that same meeting by Strathroy-Caradoc Council, and then there's a 20-day appeal period. So I've gone through it fairly quickly, but more than happy to answer any questions as we move through the public meeting process. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Comments in support of the proposed rezoning?
If I may, Chair,
Yep.
I have some registered.
Okay, go. Is that in support of?
We don't know yet.
Okay, got it.
We do have a list of registered participants this evening, so we'll move through the list of registered participants first, and then our chair will open up the floor to anyone else present wishing to speak at this public meeting. The first participant we have registered is Peter and Grace Hoytema. Peter or Grace, do you wish to speak at this time?
And just gonna remind you, I'm a pretty lenient person. For just 5 minutes, we'll go a little bit over. We kind of hold everybody to 5 minutes if that, follow that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Peter Hoytema with my wife Grace. We reside at 187 Abigail, so that is the property adjacent to the west of this proposed development. And some concerns about the proposed plan. We've had opportunity to look at the floor plan, which we've seen again tonight, but I'm wondering, are there any other more specific details, three-dimensional type of pictures, for instance, what this might look like from the ground up? Obviously, living immediately next door to this property brings some concerns to us, so I'm just wondering, in addition to what we see on the screen, what will these units actually look like? Can anyone answer that question for me?
Tim, I think, is that part of the site plan process where you see the...
Certainly, at this stage, this is the only drawing that was submitted with the application, and so we're making the evaluation based on this plan.
Secondarily, what, if any, barrier would be considered between this property and our property adjacent to the west? Has any consideration been given to that, or is that, again, something that is going to be explored at some other future time?
Through the mayor, what I will say is there's two parts to this. One is maybe just suggest maybe if you would provide what you would feel is appropriate for the space, that may be an easier way than us going back and forth with the questions back and forth. But at this stage, there is no proposal for anything along that property line that would be adjacent to your property. As I say, the owners will be hearing this, so they would be advised of it. Because there are less than 10 units here, site plan approval is not required, and the province removed the requirement for site plan approval on a plan such as this, which does make it a little bit more challenging for staff to be able to provide concrete answers to some of these types of questions, not because we are trying to be evasive in any way, but just because they aren't required, and so an applicant doesn't look to provide those details at this stage. They would not be required necessarily to put a fence or, let's say, landscaping. However, if that was part of the discussion, we could certainly reach back to them and talk with the applicants about the possibility of including something in the zoning about a landscape buffer. But that's as close as we could come on that front. I did speak a little bit more on this, but I could say something additional if necessary.
Thank you. So those are some of the specific comments. More generally, you might hear others who speak tonight share some concerns about the impact a proposal like this will have on the traffic in our neighborhoods. Head Street has become increasingly busy as it is, particularly in light of that other development which was referred to earlier between Panel and Abigail, and another development currently underway at the corner of Head and Second, which is a significant development. The traffic is obviously going to become a greater concern with these developments in a residential area. So I just raised that as a concern, as well as just a general concern about the fit of units like this in a residential area. I'm all in favor of progress and development. Strathroy-Caradoc is a growing community, and that brings a lot of opportunities, and it's great. But I do wonder if this is somewhat precedent setting as well for other properties or plots of residential land in this part of town, whereby, again, the question of fit comes to mind. Those are some of the more general concerns that I wanted to share this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next registered participants are Mark and Nancy Walters. Mark and Nancy, are you present and do you wish to speak this evening?
We did send an email with our, so if you just want to read it out, that's fine, rather than speak. Is that all right?
I apologize, I don't have the email handy right now, but I will invite the next person to speak and I can pull it up in the meantime and certainly read it.
Sure. Thank you.
The next registered participant is Beth Hunt.
Bill, don't stare at me. I actually don't have much more to say because Peter pretty well covered it. My number one thing would be the neighborhood's character. And is there other options? Semis, like I noticed up on the corner of Head and Middlesex, they got some nice semis in there that still would look like a good character for the street and area where we live. Everything else was pretty well. Thank you, Peter. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Beth.
The next registered participant is Bill Wells. Bill, are you present this evening and wish to speak? Okay. The next registered participant, is Rick Schulist. Rick, are you present this evening and do you also wish to speak?
I am present. I have nothing else to add to this. Thank you.
The next registered participant is Kevin Desjeux. Kevin, are you present and do you wish to speak this evening?
I am present. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
And Mark and Nancy, confirming that your correspondence was received a few weeks ago and is on file in reference for this planning application. That concludes our registered participants, Chair.
Thanks, folks. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Okay. Councilor Peltman.
Yeah, I know the applicant doesn't have to provide a drawing of what the buildings are going to look like, but it would have been helpful in this case. I don't doubt actually that I don't think they're going to be horrible units. I would have liked to have seen how they stack, so I can see where the garages are, and I can see where the cars are parked in front. So I'm assuming two of the units on either side don't have a garage, but are they one on top of each other? Are they four side by side? You know, I can think of a place by the beer store that has 4 units in it. That's 2 units side by side on top of each other, and it's not like a towering home. The lower level's half under grade, and so it's really only 1.5 story building. So for the people in the audience, I don't know if you've been following what's been happening with the provincial policies and stuff, but every single one of you could turn your house into 3 units, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's actually almost preferable to have a proposal this way, where we can have some say and some control, particularly about the parking, because for a lot of homes, at least this property can handle some parking, but when you try to convert a home into 3 units that only has parking for 2 cars, or 3 cars, or 4 cars if 2 are in the driveway and 2 are in the garage, it starts to become problematic, and that's when we're gonna have people parking on the street and stuff. So my own preference would be that we would see a fence and some tree plantings along 187. I think that's probably the only side of the property line that would require that. So maybe the developer in this case could see his way to do that, but it is a good sized property, and my main concern is can it handle the cars on site without affecting the street? And that it doesn't greatly impact the neighbors in behind.
Councilor Brennan.
Thank you. I think I have a traffic question as well in terms of what the municipality might consider in terms of no parking zones proximate to this property. I think specifically on Abigail, between Head Street and the entrance to this series of units. And I don't know if this will go to members of the traffic committee or to Director Ortiz, but would we be looking at some no parking zones along Abigail proximate to this entrance for safety reasons? And I don't know who that goes to.
We'll flip it over to Mr. Ortiz, who'll probably refer it to the traffic committee.
Yeah, through the chair, either through traffic committee or not sure if director of planning or director of planning has any comments on that. But it has not been an issue to date. It's not been brought up. It's not a concern right now from an engineer.
I would simply add that given the proximity between that entrance and the road, we would look at the traffic warrants and the like, and calling them traffic warrants is not quite the right term, but I don't know that there's enough space there once we put that driveway in, but we'll take a look at that, and I can certainly have something noted in the final report about whether that's the case.
Yeah, thank you for that. My concern would be that a person coming off Head Street, turning onto Abigail, I don't want overflow parking. I don't think it'd be advisable to have overflow parking from this on the street between Head Street and the entrance, because there might be some visibility issues. So I just throw that in for consideration at this point. Thank you.
Councilor Pelkman.
Yeah, just in that vein, we want to make sure that if we do something like that, we don't inadvertently impact the homes that are already there for when they're having their families over for those dinners they're going to bring their scalloped potatoes to. So.
Exactly.
Any other comments, questions? Sure, go ahead. It's overtime, but we'll let you ask questions.
Yes, I'm Valent Wolf. I live on Head Street, and my wife and our children grew up there. The last 53 years, never seen the street that busy. We can get out barely. The sidewalk, we can't cross the sidewalk because it's never cleaned at the corner. The 2 feet of snow. The water, the storm water is drained to our property. We have to drive a huge lake every time we go in and out. It's a mud hole. I already showed Mr. Brennan many times, but he said, we're gonna fix it someday. That's number 2. The number 3, our sewer doesn't work since early 2000. We spent over $4,000 calling somebody to clean it up. Every time I was told by Mr. Brennan, we have the same policy as London. Doesn't matter where the problem is. The homeowner is responsible for the sewer. Mr. Buddy Wagstaffen, he passed away. I couldn't get him before, he was there in 2 minutes. He was a neighbor. $300 every time, that's the least thing. But after that, I couldn't find nobody. The last time in Danny Powers cleaned our sewer. 2 years later, it plugged up again. I couldn't get them, so I called up the town. And finally, they agreed because we know all the way along the problem was on the other side of the road where our system is hooked into the main. After that, we got the sewer cleaned 3 times in 1 year. The next year, 2 times. So 5 times since 2021. Before I couldn't convince nobody to fix our service. We paid for the service. The least I expected to have it fixed, but nobody cared a damn thing about it. When I called the old PFC, not you guys here yet, the old one, sometimes they would send a person up there. Then he would come to the house and says, how many people live in that house? What a disgrace, you know. 2 of us, our children went to university, never came back. But you have to find out how many people live in a home. We had the first time was a $600 bill. Our children came home with their fiancés. We had to send them back. It was a Good Friday when it plugged up. We had it cleaned 3 times by Murray. Then it still didn't work. We had to put an extra clean out to the front. That didn't help either. It just kept going till 21. I should have gone to a lawyer and sued the town because that's ridiculous how we were treated on Head Street. We've been there since 1970. We built our own home, and I planted all the trees, asked the neighbors. I look after our property, and I looked after the boulevard the last, I don't know how many years. But anyway, that's enough of that, I guess.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing none. Motion to close the public meeting. So, sorry, Bo, you had your hand up. Yep.
Thanks. I was just maybe going to somewhat clarify, I think where he was headed with this is, can our system handle putting 8 homes out of 1? Like I think that's where you were kind of going with this, weren't you? The question is, you know, like if we run the pipe out there, can the main handle what we're going to do there? I guess that's through.
Oh, that's a fair question. Director Ortiz.
Through the chair. There's kind of 2 parts. One was this specific development and this specific development with 8 units being proposed. That would not be an issue from a capacity standpoint. If every resident lot in Strathroy wanted to put 8 units on, that would probably be an issue. But as of now, from a capacity standpoint, water, wastewater, there shouldn't be an issue on supply. Thank you.
Motion to close the public, I think we gotta move on a little bit here, because we're past the time, so. Motion to close the public meeting.
Excuse me, the applicant would like us to say something. The applicant would like to make a few comments in response.
Sure, okay, we give you 5 minutes.
I'll be really brief.
Okay, be really, yep.
I just want to say, like, I've lived on Head Street my entire life, pretty much. Well, I moved up, grew up a little bit, but I've lived on that road, and my sister lives on Abigail. And what I want to build there is going to be nice, beautiful, fit within the whole looks. We'll build something that'll be, like, fit alongside it. You'll have fences around it. Everything will look nice, and the whole goal is to bring some nice looking houses in that area. I'm not an outside developer. I live here, work here, and that's why I just want to make sure everybody knows I'm going to do something slick, nice.
Thank you. Around. Motion to close the public meeting. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Carried. Next motion is report BBP-2025-23 regarding rezoning application ZBA 19-2024 for 450 Head Street North be received for information. Councillor Caddis, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Next is public meeting number 2. This public meeting is to consider a rezoning application for the property at 22130 Christina Road. Motion to open the public meeting. Councillor Wilsey, second by Councillor Hammer. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Mr. Williams. You can stay, we're just getting started.
Thank you, Mr.
Floor is
Mayor.
yours, Tim.
Oh, thank you. To the members of council as well. This is a property at the corner of Irish Drive and Christina Road. It was in front of council 3 years ago for a temporary zoning. This is just merely extending that temporary zoning to allow for farm workers. This extension would be for an additional 3 years, as was the previous request. The request is the same as back then, to allow for the existing home that's on the property to be used for farm workers. The home at one point was occupied by the owners. However, that has long since not been the case. The extension would go for the 3 years. By then, council may have slightly different direction in the official plan and zoning that would allow for this type of farm operation to occur in the manner that it is. However, the policies are just in the process of coming forward either to council, or they're in the appeal process with the OLT for official plan. Amendment number 14. The report goes into some additional detail, which I'm not sure that I need to go into here, just to say that this is an extension of the existing and not any proposal for any changes from what you see there operating today. So I'm happy to take any questions that may come. The report stands as a recommendation, and that there is a bylaw on tonight's agenda to address this particular rezoning. Thank you.
Thanks. Any comments in support of the proposed rezoning? Any comments in opposition of the proposed rezoning? Any comments and or questions from members of council? Councillor Hippel and Councillor Wilsey.
Thank you. Through yourself, well, comment first. I just think this just seems to make sense. It's unfortunate that we have to do this again, and I realize that once we put this, I'm assuming that we will grant this, that once we put this through, hopefully that this will change and we won't have to continue to do this. That was just my comment, and I saw Tim Williams kind of nod his head, so I guess, okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilsey.
My question was along the same vein, but when I was doing some research on the Ontario planning statement, there's a line in there that says if the local policy is more restrictive than the provincial policy, that the provincial policy overrides. Is there anything in the provincial policy that we could use to make this permanent now rather than waiting 3 more years?
Through the mayor, no. That's the short answer.
Any other comments from members of council? Okay. Motion to close the public meeting. Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. Sorry,
did we have to motion that this was to move to the bylaws?
No, we're getting there next. That's after we close it. Okay, so we voted in favor of closing the public meeting. So the next two motions are that the report be received for information, and that the bylaw be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda for approval. Councillor Hippel, second by Deputy Mayor. Do you have a question, Councillor?
No, I was just.
All in favor of the two motions?
Get in early.
Carried. Approval of minutes. There are 2 minutes in front of you this evening for approval. The regular council meeting minutes of March 3rd and the striking committee meeting minutes from February 26th. Motion to approve the minutes. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Next are the consent items. Before we receive them for information, does anyone wish to remove any of those for consideration? Deputy Mayor.
6.2.6, 2024 Board and Council Remuneration.
Yep, 6.2.6. Any more? Councillor Wilsey.
6.2.2.
A motion to receive the rest for information.
No.
Sorry, did you have one more?
Yeah,
Gotta be a little quicker there.
Sorry, I was being courteous. Just kidding. Can I have 6.1.1 pulled out? I just I had one question on one check.
Okay. Any more? Seeing none, motion to receive the rest of the items on the consent. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Carried. We'll go to 6.1.1 first. Councillor Derbyshire.
Okay. Thank you. I might have to get Councillor Wilsey to help me with this because my brain is not as great at remembering, but I believe the check was for $184,000 for the wastewater. I just wondered what that was, and I believe it was in December of 2024. Yeah, just clarification as to what that was and why it, if it was that sum, I just wonder why we didn't see it back at council.
Yep. Director Ortiz.
Thanks. Through the chair, is that for the fin built line item? Okay. So, so this is part of the interim solution, the equalization tank, which we had paused at the end of last year. And these are costs for equipment that's been delivered to site, but not yet installed. So they're looking for payment for legitimate equipment that we have on site, and we are in possession of. And that's what this is a part of. And it took a bit of time with working with the contractor to work that out and receive the input.
Yep, follow up, Councillor Derbyshire.
Sorry. Are we expecting many more like this on something we might not be implementing? Or I think we've decided not to implement, right? Just wondering how much equipment we did buy.
I'll have to get back to you on the precise number, but there's a fairly significant savings from the original plan for construction. I don't recall if this is the last invoice or if we had another follow-up, but I can get back to you after.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilsey, 6.2.2, that was yours.
That question is about the Station 2 showers and exhaust. Happy to see that we got some grants to cover that. My question comes on the differences in the last outstanding items that are between the $400,000 report we've got and this. Are those other items that were included in the consultant's report, do we need to do those still? Or are we happy with the safety of the hull with just this repair done? Are we going to see requests to do to break out and put in the lockers? Just kind of know what the next steps is, like from the $400,000 report to the $40,000 we're at now. Just what we're doing with that bit in between that we didn't do.
I don't know, I see Director Littleborn tapping his microphone, either he or Deputy Chief Beasley.
Through the chair to council, that $412,000 number that you have in the report would have included the construction of a building inside a building, creating a separate location for the bunker gear. Right now the bunker gear in Station 2 is housed along the side of the hull in relative close proximity to a fire truck. So as part of trying to make the hull safer for air quality, but also for the firefighters, we had A-Link create a design that included building a room inside the fire hall to do that. Would have been constructed to the point where we would have been able to have a mezzanine for storage for items that may be displaced from the floor to elevate them up above, as well as creating a designated laundry facility for washing bunker gear and street clothing, as well as the showers and the exhaust fan that you see identified in the report today.
You have a follow-up, Councillor?
Yes, thank you for that explanation. I guess the second part of the question is, will we be seeing something come forward to that? Are we happy with the renovations that are done now, or are we still gonna be seeing that come through for the bunker gear or the next steps there? Just wondering what's next after this.
So if I may, your worship, to council, in the report back where we asked for permission to go to RFQ on the showers and the exhaust fan, we did mention that we would like to conduct some further air quality testing in the station once the exhaust fans were installed, to see if it would further bring down the levels of phenol and benzene in the apparatus bay. That was identified in the report. It'll be council's decision, and staff would take direction on next steps if you want us to look at continuing, the larger extensive renovation. But that would we would need council's direction for that.
Okay, next, Deputy Mayor, you had 6.2.6.
I did, thank you, your worship. So my question, just looking down through here, the only board or committee that receives councillor remuneration is the Police Services Board. Everybody else, every other council member that sits on a board or a committee receives no extra remuneration. So I'm just wondering if somebody at some time can explain why a councillor sitting on the PSB receives remuneration. And perhaps that's pursuant to one of the acts, I'm not sure, or why that occurs that way. And if you don't have the answer right now, that's fine.
No, I'm one of the ones who sit on there. I think I can answer it partially, maybe. I'll have to come back. It may be part of the act, I'm not sure. There you go. It is, it's part of the act there.
That is. Okay, please.
Any other questions? Do we need a motion to receive those three items, 6.2.6, 6.2.2, and 6.1.1? Motion to Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Canis. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Derbyshire, your first motion.
Which one is it? Oh. What's that? It all got condensed. Okay, my first motion is, I'd like to propose that at the first meetings in October, February, and May, that we include all employees in their volunteer and service awards recognition, including police officers and firefighters. So we would have everyone come into council room, so that they can all get the same treatment.
Yep, waiting for a second. You second, Councilor Hippel. Sure, yeah, you can go first.
Thank you. Just a comment on that. I think it's such a great idea. I think at first we were wondering why we only did it for one, and if we did it for one, do we do it for all, or should we, do not all or none? And absolutely we should do all. We should be cheering on the people in our municipality that great things are happening to, because our community is just getting bigger and bigger. And, these are things that we need to be supportive on. And I think this is a great motion, Councillor Derbyshire, so.
Any other questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
I think it is a really good motion. Of course, I commented on this last time, that we should be recognizing people. My only concern with this is on those 3 dates, that little bit of space at the back of the room where I see 3 rows of seating isn't going to hold the family and friends that might want to come in to see the people. I would like to see, or at least examine the idea about, at the call of the CAO, because the CAO should know what's going on in the department, I wouldn't mind taking 5 minutes at the beginning of any meeting that the CAO determines to put it in, so we can do recreation, and then we can do engineering, and then we can do somebody that's leaving, and then we can, but we can just take the first 5 minutes of any meeting and do recognition, and at least that way we're gonna give people a place to come and see that recognition occur. I don't know how we're gonna fit that many people into the room, but I do agree that we need to be recognizing our people.
Comments, questions? Councilor Brown.
I think Deputy Mayor makes a good logistical point. The room isn't built for great big meetings with a large audience. And if we were to, eliminate the October, February, May idea and just basically say that the recognition and service awards for police officers, firefighters, and employees would happen in the first part of any council meeting as called upon by the mayor and the clerk and the CAO setting the agenda. And that way it would just go on throughout the year as required. And one night you might have 3 people, another night you might have 4, rather than having 51 showing up on a night and not being able to handle the crowd. So I think from a logistical point of view, it makes a lot of sense to have it occur as required throughout the year in smaller batches, a little bit more personal and nice for family to come and be able to take photos. So I think it's a good idea to do it for all, but maybe to spread it out for logistical reasons.
Were you gonna make a friendly amendment, maybe?
Well, I would make that friendly amendment. I don't know how to phrase it precisely, but that the service recognition for police officers, firefighters, non-municipal employees occur at the beginning of the agenda at the call of the chair throughout the year.
Are you okay with that, Councilor Derbyshire?
Yeah, perfectly fine with that. One other thought I did have was, instead of it happening here, have we ever thought about a municipal awards banquet? As opposed to everyone coming to the Horseshoe, why don't we go the other way and do a municipal awards banquet where we can honor everybody one night all at once? They can bring who they want, and that way we're not worried about logistics in this room. That was one other thought I had after I kind of put this forward. That was where my mind kind of wandered to, and I thought that would, we're already doing somewhat of a fireman banquet. You could just make it the whole community. So maybe it's something that we defer and have another thought on here before we do anything with anybody.
Okay. Oh, CAO wants to chime in.
They say, like everyone said, it's a great idea. I think if you can just leave it with staff, we'll take a look at it and look at the logistics and budget and bring something back to council at a future date.
Okay with that?
So would that be the motion to defer and allow staff to deal with this?
You need a motion to defer?
Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to proceed for now with the motion and let us come back, because it might take consideration at the next budget. Just depends on what we were able to pull together.
Okay. So you're okay, you second this motion, you're okay with the amended motion? All in favor of the amended motion? Carried. Your second motion there, Councilor Derbyshire?
All right. This one might be a little trickier. Any board or committee that is presenting directly to council, that the members of that board or committee are not eligible to participate in the vote. So that would, basically we have kind of 2 committees that are doing that. You have the fire and the CDAC. So if they present directly, or not CDAC, Caradoc Housing, or Strathroy-Caradoc Housing. So if they present, who's ever on that board would step aside and the rest of the council members would vote on the presentation that they put forward. So any board that has 4, so if we create new boards that have 4 council members that present directly to council. So if you have a director that presents for your board, you would all vote. But if you are presenting directly as the board or committee itself, your members wouldn't vote.
Seconder on your motion. Councillor Wilsey. We'll open it up to questions. Deputy Mayor.
I'm troubled by it. I think under the Municipal Act, every councillor, unless they have a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest, is permitted to vote at this horseshoe, and that's given by legislation. And by bylaw, we can't take an RSO, a revised statute of Ontario regulation away. I think that's missing the whole point of why you have committees, is so that the committee's members go out and examine something deeper and bring that information back to their fellow councillors, you know, to try to enhance the conversation. But it's not to come in with a specific point of view as to how anybody would vote at a meeting. This whole idea of which hat you're wearing when you're sitting at a specific table. So I don't think I could support that one.
Yeah. Councillor Derbyshire.
I understand where you're coming from, that everyone should have the right to vote. The problem is, when I think of a board or a committee, I think what we're asking for is public input. So if you have 2 councillors that are receiving the information and more public people, that's what the board or committee is for. The problem is we're setting up boards that have 4 councillor, 2 public. You're really not getting public input. You're getting a councillor, a bunch of councillors that are now pushing their agenda. And I don't mean it like it's a bad agenda. I just am saying when you put 4 on there, you've already got almost the majority of the vote. So when you come back to council, and I know you can say, oh, it'll split here, split there, but if it was the other way and you had 4 public and 2 councillors, you're beginning to get more of what I thought boards and committees were designed for, was for the public to have input on certain things.
Councillor Woolsey, then Councillor Canis.
My thought when I read this, I actually kind of like the idea, just because with having the board members who are presenting directly to council, it puts the onus on them to do a good presentation, to make sure that the information that they've actually researched and found out is communicated not only to the council but to public as well. As it stands right now, if you have members come up and there's not a lot of discussion, or the presentation is missing some details and it's not really clear as to why they want to make the decision, just that they have a recommendation, the rest of council may be at a loss. But if there's 4 councillors on that board, for example, they only need 1 other councillor to agree with them, and then we don't get to go back and find some of that missing information, and especially the public doesn't for that. So my thought was just to put the onus more on that board if they're going to present to council, to be complete in their information, be persuasive if they're trying to get a certain way. Just be more informative and transparent was why I like this motion.
Councillor Canis.
I guess my concern with this motion is that is how you interpret it, because when council meets as a finance committee and produces a budget and then recommends it to council, which is all of us, in a case like that, the way you read this motion, the whole finance committee would have to excuse itself from council and not be able to approve a budget. So I think that if you're looking at something, I think it needs some thought, and you need to, as the deputy mayor mentioned, Municipal Act. I expect most other councils all operate the same way, and I don't think we can set our own rules on such things. So that's where I'm at.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I will not be supporting this motion for a couple of reasons. One is that as a councillor, why would I ever join a committee and give up my vote at council? So you're gonna have a hard time getting people to sit on committees if they're giving up their council vote. And I was elected here to vote at council. Number 2, you get to situations where 4 councillors at fire vote in favor of something. It comes in front of council. Only 5 councillors are able to vote for it. 3 vote against it, 2 vote for it, and so the motion's defeated. But you have 6 members of council supporting something, and it's defeated by 3 members of council. I don't think that gets absurd. Just the idea that if the concern is that there's a perception that there's not enough public participation at committees, then the onus is then on this council to appoint more people to committees from the public. So let's expand the committees. You want to have an extra 2 or 3 people on a committee from the public, that's great. Let's look at that. It's difficult to get community members sometimes to volunteer, but we can try for that. I guess we just want to make sure that committees do good work. So if another way around it would be to have more public groups present to the committees so that more voices are heard. But I can't support councillors giving up their right to vote in council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pammer and Councillor Paul.
I feel like we've been talking a lot back and forth the last few months about committees and voting and members, and I really would like, I would like to put a motion forward that we ask the CAO to come back with, I think we need to look at our committees. I think that we're having some difficulty with how they're formed and their process and their function and their role and perhaps even the weight that they have. And I think we just need to look at the whole program over again, because I feel like this is a bit of a broken record here. We keep talking about this. So if I could put a motion out, right?
We have a motion on the floor.
You can have more than one motion.
Defer.
If I may though, however, Councillor Pammer, so we do have a motion from the March 3rd meeting directing staff to review the boards. This is more specific to the mix of the council member complement to the member of the public complement. So we do have direction from council.
Councillor Polkman and I think Councillor Hippel.
Yes, thank you. I cannot support this motion. When we make decisions collectively around the horseshoe, that decision is the will of council. And really, this motion is what we talked about at the last meeting, worded differently, and it's not respecting the will of council. As well, the intent of the motion is to, again, not respect the will of council. And you're gonna win some votes, you're gonna lose some votes, and when you lose some votes, you say, okay, that was the will of council, and you move on. So I can't support this motion.
Did you have Councillor Hippel?
Through yourself, I honestly was just going to kind of reiterate what our clerk had mentioned, that I think we already have something on the docket that maybe we should focus on that, and then.
Yeah. I'm just gonna speak to the role of the mayor. The mayor, by force of being in this chair, is ex officio on every committee, some of which I go to once a year. So just echoing Councillor Brennan's comment about giving up your vote. I mean, I go to the Tri-Township Arena maybe once a year, so you know, to give up my vote, I know the deputy mayor is ex officio by force of his office and being here. So, anyways, Councillor Derbyshire, yeah.
Just for clarification, the Tri-Township Board doesn't present direct to council. So normally that would come through a director or somebody else. My point is the boards that are wanting to report directly to council. So that's basically the fire service. If they choose to use the fire chief or deputy chief as the director and go that way where he's doing your presentation, I have no problem with that. The other one would be the Caradoc Housing or Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Board, which is 4 councillors. They're not gonna have someone to be their director, but to be honest with you, they sit by themselves. We know all the insides and out, the person sitting at the board. The rest of us don't really know. I know you're saying don't give up, you don't wanna give up your right as a councillor to vote. I understand that, but it just feels like the other information, the other guys, as you're presenting it, you are the presenter. You don't have a director writing the report for you. It's that board that's doing it. So it's that board that is actually writing it. It's that board that's approving it. It's that board. It's not a director that takes what your suggestions are, formulates a report and says, here's what we discussed at this thing. So that's where I see the difference, being that almost every other committee has a director that presents their stuff and says, here's a report from this, here's a report from this, and here's a report from this.
Yeah. Councillor Hippel, then we'll.
Sorry, I'll just make this really quick. Through yourself to our CAO, maybe perhaps we could look at that when we look at the motion that we put through in our last meeting about committees.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if you'd leave it with us, we will look at take a broad stroke to the committee approach and maybe bring back some of the best practices that are being used around the province and for council's consideration.
So we have a motion in front of you. All in favor of the motion? Opposed to the motion? Motion is defeated. 9.1, legal and legislative services versus municipal appointments of the Tri-Township Arena. Motion to receive the report first. Councillor Kennis, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Do you wish to speak to the clerk?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to members of Council, very brief report. Striking Committee met on February 26th to review 2 applications received to serve on the Tri-Township Board of Management. Ward 2 resident William Flagover is recommended, and there is a corresponding bylaw on Council's agenda for consideration this evening. For his appointment for the remainder of the term ending November 14th, 2026.
Any questions? Seeing none, the 2 motions are the council concurs with the striking committee's recommendation to appoint William Flago to the Tri-Township Arena Board for the balance of the term ending November 14th, 2026. And further, the bylaw number 33-25, amending council's appointments bylaw, be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda. So I'm going to bring a motion. Councillor Kennis, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Motion to receive the report regarding the renewal of the lease agreement with Integris Power Lines Inc. Motion to receive. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Brianna.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to members of Council, again, a brief report before you this evening. This is looking to renew or enact a secondary lease agreement with Integris Power Lines. We currently have a lease agreement with this entity that is ending on March 31st. No substantive changes are proposed for the lease renewal, which is in regards to the property at 351 Francis Street, Strathroy. Basic rents remain the same, and a modest update to additional rent to account for increases in utility costs and insurance premiums. If you have any more specific questions about the property itself, my colleague Director Wilborn is also present for questions.
Questions? I actually have one. I apologize to both of you. I didn't get a chance to ask this previously. Was there or is there a possibility of putting it back out for lease? So we just rolled over to Integris because there was a rollover clause, or could there be a possibility of seeking other tenants?
Through the chair to your worship, there was no rollover clause. This is to renew the existing lease. Is there a possibility for a new tenant? There's always possibility for a new tenant, but if we were to terminate this lease with this tenant, we would have months of facility that's going to sit vacant until we find another tenant. Integris has been a long-term tenant at that location. At one time, they utilized, I'm going to say, about 75% of that property until Integris at one time had an office here, and then they've amalgamated offices in St. Thomas, and then they've decided to keep a presence in the community, and then rather relocating to other locations in the community, they chose to stay here at 351 Francis Street. Since that time, that building has been divided up into 3 locations, or 3 uses now. We have emergency services that work out of there, as well as a pharmacy that spent money renovating and is there till, I believe, their lease expires in 2027.
Thanks. Answer my question. Councillor Polkman.
If you may, I may just add a little more to that. We actually chased Integris to maintain a presence in town, because when you have a big storm or something like that, you want them to have the stuff on hand here, so there's not a big delay in service recovery for our residents.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, the two motions are the council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter a lease agreement with Integris Power Lines in regards to 351 Francis Street and further, the bylaw number 35-25 be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda. So bring those motions. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Himpel. All in favor? Carried. Financial Services, motion to receive report FIN-2025-04, motion to receive for information. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Director Dakin.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Council. Before you is the Section 357 application for reduction of property taxes based on the removal of 11 bulk kilns on this property at 8418 Irish Drive, resulting in a reduction of $40,000 on the farm assessment, resulting in a refund of $136.58 for 2024, and the adjustment will be built into the 25 billing at the end of August. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, motion that section 357 application for 8418 Irish Drive be approved for processing. Councillor Derbyshire, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Building and Planning, the Fieldcrest Planning Evaluation Report. Motion to receive the report for information. Councillor Kennis, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an evaluation report for the rezoning application to bring this from an OS, that's an open space zone, to a R3-25-1-5, and those holds are related to the fact that the property is adjacent to the rail line and also the requirement for a site plan application. You'll remember during the public meeting back in November, there were a few comments that were received from council, and staff have gone back and reviewed how to address those. The majority through site plan, which is a requirement of this process, so we've included a hold as a result of that. That's the H-1. It is a part of a larger subdivision, so H-5 is required in order for the subdivision agreement to be subject of the property as well. The proposal is for townhouses on 16 blocks. Its internal road network would be private roads, and the plan is up in front of you, and you may remember it from back during the meeting. One of the comments that was received was that parking needs to be better distributed through the site and that there's a very long driveway. Both of those items will be things that will be discussed during the site plan process, but wouldn't necessarily affect the zoning. They're not asking for a reduction in the visitor parking, so we will hold them to that parking standard and just have them look to redistribute them throughout the site. There were comments from CN, and that's why there's the hold removal. And you can see those, there was comments about municipal servicing that we've confirmed now that can be accommodated on the site. And one new requirement as a result of the provincial planning statement was the requirement for confirmation that there would be no negative impacts on the high York Street industrial area. So that's one of the newer things from the provincial policy statement, is that we need to, if you're establishing residential within 300 meters of an established industrial area, you need to look at that. And this project has looked at it at a high level and will do more detailed mitigation measures if necessary at the time of site plan. But I will say that the rail line and the vibration and noise from that is probably going to be significantly higher than anything that would happen in the industrial. And so we're probably not going to see anything as a result of that. From a policy analysis, I've gone through the whole details in the report, so I'll leave it at a high level to say that this is designated residential lands in the official plan. It's within the settlement boundary, and they were looking for, and you can see them up on the screen there, reduced setbacks, increased building coverage, reduced lot area requirements, and reduced parking aisle widths. I would note one other piece. There was a comment made about the lot sizes being smaller. They are much smaller than our standard for this zone. However, one of the items was the requirement for amenity space to be provided, and they are fully meeting that requirement and more. So the requirement is approximately 20 square meters per unit, and they're proposing just over 50 square meters per unit. So meeting that, as well as readjusting the location of the park to bring it forward along Willis. That's the public park. So all of these things together allow for a much more functional use of open space on this project. So with that, I will say that staff are recommending approval of this, and there is a bylaw on the agenda this evening as well. There's a 20-day appeal period. If it were to be approved or a decision to deny, it would also be at the same 20-day appeal period. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councilor Wilsey.
Just a clarification. If we approve this, does that leave all the parking in the one area? I thought that the planner had said that we needed to move the parking and distribute it more around the subdivision. So we just want a little bit of confirmation as to whether or not that would happen if we approve it tonight.
Mr. Williams.
The zoning bylaw requires a certain number of parking spaces per unit, both visitor and tenant. They are going to meet those requirements, and the zoning bylaw doesn't go as far as to detail the location of where those parking spaces will go. Staff are very much aware of what council has said, and also agree with the requirement to have, or the need for those parking spaces to be distributed. This particular plan is the same plan that was before council before, but staff are looking for the developer to provide parking on a more, provide visitor parking, that is, throughout the site, and that would be secured through site plan process, not through the zoning itself.
Any other questions? Councilor Derbyshire.
Sorry, just getting to one, and I don't know whether it's in here or whether we get into the actual subdivision, but I see it does come to a dead end just thinking about our emergency services and the private roads. Have we left enough space for fire trucks and any apparatuses to maneuver around in there if we happen to have a service, up there where it comes around?
Go to Mr. Williams.
Thank you. That was a comment that was received prior as well, and what I would say is that connection, to have that length of road is not acceptable to staff either, and will be something that's secured through site plan, is to have it loop back and connect, or have the design changed regardless. But again, that isn't something that we can if we're talking about the long stretch at the top, just to make sure I don't go any further with it, okay. Yeah, that it would either loop back or that there would be a revised design that would cause a different outcome, but have multiple options.
Any other questions? Councilor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I look at this and I take a look at the proposed development with 120 units, and also there's another block beside it that looks like it's eventually going to be developed too. I think it was at block 279, I'm not sure. But I'm looking at Willis Avenue and Carroll Street, that intersection, and the intersection of Abbott and Queen, because we're putting these rather large developments in the back corner here of this area, and there's sort of like two outlets where all these people are going to go to get out in the morning, get out to work. They're either going to go down to Willis and go to Carroll, or they're going to go to Abbott and out to Queen. And I'm just looking at those two intersections, and I'm wondering, have we done traffic studies to determine what the flow rate will be at those intersections at peak times, and are we going to have any traffic control there eventually? I'm just wondering what the volumes are going to be there, because we've got two outlets and we just keep putting more and more units back in there, and I can just see that Willis is going to turn into not just a quiet residential street, but more of a collector. And the same goes with Abbott. Those are going to kind of be arteries going into these developments in the back corner. So I'm just wondering if we've looked at the traffic studies adequately.
Yep. Through the mayor to Councillor Brennan. So this is a subdivision that was approved many years ago, and this portion where the majority of the townhouses are located in the park block was previously going to be a school block. So there wasn't going to be homes here, and if we could wave a crystal ball and say we should have had the school right along Carroll Street, then this additional density would have been closer to Carroll, and we might not have this. But this is the hand that we're dealt, and so we're taking a look at it from that perspective. With that being said, so now what are we looking at? We do know that Abbott is going to take some of the traffic, but it is kind of a unique route with turns, and it's not a straight route. It's also a right-of-way at the time was acceptable at 16 meters, and it has a standard pavement width of 8 meters, so that's fine. The stretch going down to Willis is proposed at this point, but it is still on the books as designed this way, is that is a 20-meter right-of-way, and it is 10 meters in width of asphalt. So that's even greater than a large number of streets within town. So we would see most traffic head down that direction and then out onto Carroll, and from there, where you go could be back up into the north, or it could be elsewhere. So that's kind of the way that we saw it, is that westerly route is much more difficult to do, and so we felt that the traffic was generally going to be heading south at this point and then out to Carroll. So that was that, and when I say we, I'm talking the royal we of staff, as I'm mostly referring to the engineering group. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the two motions are the rezoning application as amended by staff be approved. Secondly, that the bylaw number 21-25 be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Motion to receive the report on Buchanan crossings. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. Mr. Williams.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, Jake Dritter is on the line and would be happy to take this one.
Hello, Jake.
Hello. Thank you, Chair. This one is Crossing subdivision. Council would have seen this one back in firstly June 2023, and then later for approval in March 2024. So from the time at March 2024, we've been working with the developer and their consultants, working through approvals, detailed design, some archaeological stuff, subdivision agreements, and now we're at a point of executing the subdivision agreements. So this agreement is for phase 1 of the development only, which is 108 detached lots, which are primarily in the built form of semi-detached units. And then also in phase 1 is one of the medium density blocks, and it's approximately 145 units. Some councillors may be aware, but the developers out there putting up silt fence, preparing the site for this agreement, and are excited to get going. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Just want to see if this proposal includes the higher density on Napperton that boundaries onto county land that we had the residents talk about before. I see the lots for all the other ones. I just didn't know if those higher density blocks are also included in this plan.
Through the chair, yes, it is. So that is the one medium density block that is within phase 1. That's the 145 unit. So that block does require site plan approval. We have been working with the developer to get through site plan approval at the same time we've been working through the subdivision. So they're very close on site plan approval as well, and they intend to construct both the subdivision and the block at a very similar time.
Other questions? Councillor Pelkman.
Just a comment. I remember the concerns of the people from County Lane, even though they're Adelaide Metcalfe residents, but the developer has put up a very large sign that says no construction access down County Lane, and they've put up the silt fencing all the way along, so it would be very difficult for any construction vehicles to go through. So I think the developer's doing a good job so far.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the motion in front of you is that bylaw number 32-25 be referred to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda. Councillor Kennis, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is carried. Engineering and Public Works, the drinking water quality management standard audit. Motion to receive the audit report first. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Carried. Victor Ortiz.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to Council, in front of you is a report summarizing the EWQS audit that was conducted, both the external audit and the internal audits. I am happy to answer any questions that Council may have.
Are there any questions? Okay. Seeing none, the motion is that Council endorse the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc Water Distribution System DWQMS operational plans. Bring the motion, Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Next matter is Walker's Drive structure replacement and Saxon Road guide rail installation engineering services tender award. Motion is that the report titled C07 Walker's Drive structure replacement and C06 Saxon Road guide rail installation engineering services tender award be received for information. Bring the motion. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Victor Ortiz.
Thank you. Through the Chair, in front of Council is a award tender for a RFP for design services for the construction of a culvert along Walker's Drive. I will note that we did conduct this review with a 75%, 25% technical cost evaluation. So we looked at the technical aspect, weighed that 75%, and then we evaluated the cost of the submissions. We are recommending to award to Strathroy Associates. They were the highest technical and they were the lowest cost, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilor Derbyshire.
Sorry, yeah, through you to, I guess, the director, and it's more just kind of information. This is going through the Trout Creek, right? Yes, okay. So my motion last week asked for that specific creek to possibly change from a creek to a ditch or a drain. If that were to go through, would this change anything going forward? Like when we get it engineered that way, would they then say, okay, because it's no longer a creek twisting and it's going to be a straight ditch, should this culvert be situated differently in the road as opposed to where it is? Like, I'm just wondering, should we be working possibly if the other one goes through with this here? Or would this fit into that other motion somehow?
Director Ricky.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire. So Strathroy, they do a lot of municipal drain work. So one thing we can do with this design is to accommodate any potential conversion to a future drain. We can look at that as part of the design. There could be some additional cost depending on that, but it's something that we will look at during the design phase for sure. Try to future-proof it with any sort of larger municipal drain construction project.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is council awards engineering services to Strathroy Associates Limited for $72,130 plus HST and an additional $10,000 for contingency. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I thought we were working on both separate, but could I ask one more question about the guardrails on Saxton?
Yep.
Okay. The placement of the guardrails on Saxton, will this still allow for larger farm equipment to move through and past and around, or are we blocking some of that access by doing this? Maybe guardrails aren't. Is there anything farm friendly, or is it going to be wide enough? I guess that was my question.
Good question.
Yeah, through the chair, something we can also look at during design to make sure that we are accommodating for farm vehicles and farm equipment along the Saxton. I'll make a note of that and pass that on to the engineering.
Thank you.
Okay, did someone spring the motion? Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. The CAO, the 2025 compensation adjustments for elected officials and non-union staff. Motion to receive the report first. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. Director Payne, were you going to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, Council. Report before you just regarding COLA for 2025. A little bit of background. Back in February, I presented to Council the outside workers, our QP group, with respect to their COLA increases as per the collective agreement. That was ratified at 3.75% for COLA for 2025. As I guess parting that out to non-union staff, historically we've presented the same COLA increases to non-union staff as we do our unionized staff. So this report does discuss those factors and some of the costs associated with that increases to the COLA. I won't go through the full report, but I'll hit a couple of highlights. I think it's prudent. What we did is with respect to 2025 budget for council passed 3% with respect to the wages. You will notice 3.75 is the recommended. I want to point out through our analysis that we do have vacant positions that we've not filled for 2025. That will offset the additional cost for the 0.75%, if you will. So from a budgetary perspective, I think that's important. The report also gives council a little bit of information about inflation, just to show historically what the municipality has been providing versus what inflation has been happening. Secondly, We're looking at doing a bit of a shift or a modified shift to our band 1 on our grid. Our band one on our grid talks about our seasonal and student positions that we have in the municipality. You may be aware, provincial governments has mandates with respect to minimum wage in Ontario. We've been just chugging along, just keeping ahead of it. We're expecting another minimum wage increase this October again. We don't know what that will be. We'll soon to find out. So we're just proposing an adjustment to band 1 only with respect to what we think may happen. It results in a 5.47% increase. The bands are shown 2024 versus 2025 for your perusal. I suppose lastly, from a financial component, I did speak earlier about the financial, I guess, increase. Under the non-union staff, it just shows our current staff headcount with respect to where they sit in the grids and the steps, and how many non-union staff we have moving through the grid and who's that job rate. So happy to answer any questions if council may have any.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, there are 3 motions in front of you and they're lengthy. So rather than read them, we'll approve all 3 motions. Motion to approve all 3. Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Deputy Mayor, County Council.
If I may, 3 items I just want to touch upon. We had a good meeting last week. We heard from Partnerships for Municipal Innovation, Women in Local Leadership. So the mayor and I went in for a morning reception and meeting, but there was a group came in from Cambodia of local government officials. They were here for 3 days in the London, Middlesex County area, and they discussed a lot of the type of stuff we're doing, water, wastewater, municipal infrastructure, just providing services to their own communities in Cambodia. A couple of conversations I had, we're talking about the same stuff, but we see it from either far left or far right, and we're both looking inwards. So it was unique on their perspective and where they were finding challenges in their own communities on the other side of the world, basically. They did some touring around throughout Middlesex County, seemed to enjoy their day. I know our contingent from Middlesex County, I think they've been to Cambodia twice now, once for sure. So it's a reciprocal situation going on. Another report we had was on, they call it the SISM agreements. So these agreements, best as I understand, are the agreements between the City of London and the County of Middlesex about the percentile which each of those 2 bodies pay towards those corporations that they both fund into. Middlesex London Health Unit, Middlesex London Paramedic Service. Those are the biggies that I can think of offhand. There's a couple more, but these SISM agreements are up for renegotiation currently. And right now, it's easy to say, like just generally, it's an 85%, 15% split between the City of London and the County of Middlesex. So if those ratios adjust, then that could have a bearing on the county's budget. And the last, well, not the last, but one of the other things we had was a report from Joe Windsor, the manager for social services. He spoke on 3 areas, just touch on them real quick. Children's services is one of the areas that he addresses. 165% increase in licensed spaces since 2020. 4 new centers have opened since 2020. There's a whole bunch of stats, but the use of children's services in the county is up quite dramatically since, and they're going back to about the 2020 time period. So more spaces, more children, more need, which is really good that people see that's in the community and is being used. He also spoke about Ontario Works. That's another program that Joe Windsor and his group are involved with. It's some good and some bad. 21% reduction in clients who had been accessing Ontario Works for more than 5 years, but a 5% increase in caseload size from January to December of last year. So overall, people are starting to come off of Ontario Works in Middlesex County. He didn't specifically say why, but I would generally think that's good. And homelessness prevention, so another huge area that Joe Windsor and his group are involved with. We had some stats given there, and he talked about a lot of the programs that they're dealing with, the wraparound supports. Middlesex Homeless Action Committee is another group that they're involved with. I can say that the Middlesex Accommodations Program, they served 77 individuals were supported last year. 12 children between the ages of 0 and 17 were supported. They have a Whatever It Takes fund where over 250 individuals and families were supported, and this is paying last month's rent, rental arrears, and utility arrears. So last month's rent is somebody that wants to get an apartment, but they need last month's rent. And if they don't have it, then they can be funded through this program, and that helps people get into rental accommodations. And through the winter response, generally what we'll talk about from youth center across the street and in the community, 26 individuals were provided hotel motel accommodations during the winter month. I did have a conversation with Joe. He told me that last year and through the winter, we had nobody in Middlesex County that was unhoused. So they were able to get to everybody that they were made aware of in the community that needed housing or accommodation, even if it was for an evening, received that. So that is a huge benefit to the community. So well done for those people. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Announcements and inquiries by members. We will start with Councillor Hippel this evening.
Thank you. For yourself, that was Deputy Mayor. That's fantastic to hear about in the winter months that the Middlesex County, who they were made aware of. I mean, I would like to say that there's probably many people that it didn't work for, and they were not housed and they were not helped, and not because Middlesex County didn't do anything or we didn't do anything, because they're not aware. I think that is something that we need to really be focusing on and working on diligently. However, I am going to move forward a little bit with transfer stations. I know that's exciting, but the Strathroy transfer station, March 1st, it began its summer hours. Mount Bridges, beginning of April, it starts the summer hours. And the reason I bring this up is because now that the weather is getting nice, all the snow is melted and you're seeing all the sticks and all the junk that's on your lawns, and everyone's getting excited because they want to be outside, and you're gathering these things up. Please don't dump them in the ditches down the side roads. I'm just asking nicely, like, the transfer stations are there, it's free. Take your leaves, take the stuff that's sitting on your lawns. I mean, there's transfer stations for a reason. The ditches aren't there for you to dump your garbage in. They're not there for the leaves, they're not there for dead fish, they're not there for any of the electronics that you feel that are necessary to go in there. That's just not what they're there for. So now that the transfer stations have their summer hours and it's more available for you, I'm just really plugging, that's where you go. Anyways, enough of my rant on that one. I'm pretty excited. I was talking to a fair amount of business owners in Mount Bridges the other day, and we're pretty pumped about this, our campaign, the Local First campaign. And I'm sure Councillor Pammer is going to talk to this, But I just wanted to say how excited I was that the Mount Bridges Downtown Business Association was also participating with the Chamber of Commerce, Strathroy District Chamber of Commerce, and Downtown Strathroy, putting this together, this campaign together. It's as we get more businesses in our area, and even through International Women's Day, I'm really noticing there's so many more businesses coming together and working together, and they're younger and multicultural and all genders. We're all working together, and it's just really nice to see that, you know, we really want to promote local first, and if we can all come together, that would be the idea that would make Strathroy-Caradoc boom in that direction. So pretty excited about that, and I know that the Mount Bridges Business Association is pretty excited to be on board with that as well. So kudos to everyone that put that together. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Kennis.
Just briefly, I've noticed that there's, and rightfully so, a lot of concern and a lot of people in the dumps about tariffs and all that kind of stuff. And it certainly is an issue that we don't know where it's going to go. But as I get older, I get reminded of when I was younger and needed, and it seems to be mostly a lot of young people that are pretty discouraged and pretty afraid of all of this. And so I think we all need to encourage each other a bit. We will get through it, and you know, what's the line? Elbows up, but maybe chins up as well. We will get through this, and but there may be difficulty along the way. But certainly, the best thing we can do is encourage each other rather than discourage one another. So let's keep fighting forward.
Councillor Wilsey, excuse me.
I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who came out to the open house we had this week with Councillor Derbyshire and I at the Still. It was great to have so many people out and the discussions, and before we knew it, the place was closed and they were kicking us out, so it was a good night by all. The other part that I wanted to mention is, with everything melting and the grass being green and everything starting to grow again, kids are out with their bikes on the roads, especially the ones near town, outside the subdivisions, or even in town on the sidewalks. Just keep an eye out for the kids, and also keep an eye out for the dogs. There's lots of new smells, and it's spring and everything's coming back to life, and dogs just may run out. So just keep an eye for kids and dogs and try to keep everybody safe this spring.
Councillor Brandon.
On the same note, maybe from the Conservation Authority, they were putting this out as well. Everybody be mindful that high water levels mean keep your children and your pets away from the banks of swiftly flowing rivers and ponds. Maybe over the next 3 or 4 days, the flow rates will subside, but it's quite dangerous, especially where there's a little bit of ice, if it still exists on a snowbank, especially if it's not hitting the sun. So just be careful, and other than that, I have a happy St. Patrick's Day. There we go.
Councillor Culver.
I've got a serious note and a lighter side note, so I'll start with the serious one first. For those of you who knew Avery College, he just passed away, and he had a unique job in the municipality, taking photographs of kids in school. And I would say for anyone who's spent their entire lives, your picture's up on a wall taken by Avery College somewhere. So I just wanted to recognize that because he was a service corps member as well. But he did play an important role in a lot of people's history here in the Strathroy area. On a lighter note, as it's St. Patrick's Day, I was keeping a 4-leaf clover in a book and decided to take it out because I didn't want to press my luck.
That will adjourn. Councillor Derbyshire. And you're going to tell us you've been kicked out of bars.
Kicked out of where?
Bars.
I wasn't getting into that. But no, what I was going to actually ask was, I did have an inquiry from numerous residents as to what is happening on, as we know it as County Road 81 or Adelaide Road. Some have gone out and inquired. They were told it's getting widened. I don't need an explanation right now, just at some point if we could put out something as to what, why, how, or if you have an explanation now, I would gladly take it from somebody.
Okay.
No, go ahead, you can give the.
No, I saw that and I meant to call the county engineer today to ask him. I will call him tomorrow. I just didn't get time today to call him unless they're being a county road.
I'll have to reach out.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get back to the public on that. The other thing I'd like to do is thank the Lions Club and all the people that came out to Farmers Night. Was well attended, a good night, and I do thank them for inviting me. That's it.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, and I would like to thank the local ladies, Lions Club for Ladies' Night a couple of weeks ago. It was very successful and fun had by all, as I can attest to. It was a great night. Thank you for doing that. Also, just on the tariffs, Thursday morning, we have our MPP breakfast with our MPP available. There's tickets still available if you'd like to come out and chat with him a little bit more about your concerns, and hopefully he can answer some questions or at least be there to hear your concerns. Tickets should be available. I believe there's probably a link on the municipal website for those, or the municipal Facebook page.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two things this evening. I see in front of me here, I have a event being sponsored by the Strathroy-Caradoc Firefighters Association. So they're doing their Yuck Yuck event on April 5th. It's coming up. It's down at the Willow Tree Golf Course. So that's a dinner and a show. I suspect that is on maybe our website, I'm not sure. If not, we'll, maybe we can get it up so people have access to it, or get a hold of any of the firefighters in town. They'll certainly know about it. Looks like a lot of fun. The other item I can talk about a little bit is Tri-Township Arena, sitting on that board. We met last Thursday and we are getting well into the stages of looking at what renovations and short to mid-term upgrades we can do to that arena for the betterment of the community. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
And mine is, I should have a question for the CAO. I've had inquiries too with regards to the audit, the Caradoc housing audit by BDO, so I'm going to ask the CAO to comment on it.
Thank you, Your Worship. After the last council meeting, representatives from BDO contacted me to inform me that they had discovered a conflict of interest with one of the parties involved in the investigation. I've spoken with them and they're going to attend the next council meeting virtually to discuss their issue. And from there we'll discuss what council wishes to do.
Yep. Thank you. Next regular council meeting is Monday, April 7th at 6 p.m. Now move to the consideration of bylaws. There are, let's see, 7 bylaws in front of you. The motion is that they receive first, second, third, and final reading. Someone to bring the motion, Deputy Mayor. Second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. And before I bring adjournment, folks, I'm going to announce, as we all know, that our clerk, Brianna Hammer, this is her last evening as our clerk. So Brianna, I want to thank you for your time here and putting up with my fumbling through things. So good luck to you in your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Motion that the meeting adjourn at 7:43 p.m. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor?